advertising. There are different media types. We need to decide which media type is going to be the best to reach our target audience. Remember we said the target market and the target audience generally is not the same. The target market is who we want to buy our product. The target audience is who we want to reach with our advertising. Generally, we said the target audience is a subset of the target market. So we need to decide in terms of the media types. Television is a media type. Radio is a media type. Both of those are classified as broadcast. Print, we have magazines and newspapers, two major options. We have outdoor advertising, which includes billboards, which is the earliest form of outdoor advertising. We have transit advertising. We have advertising at stadiums, airports, and we have what's called street furniture. Street furniture is a type of outdoor advertising, like, for example, benches on the street. You ever notice they have those signs there that say 1-800-LAWYER? Right? That's an example of street furniture. It's a form of outdoor advertising. Or the bus kiosks, those bus shelters. When you're waiting for the bus, they have those shelters that have posters there. Those are examples of outdoor advertising. Go ahead, Deshaun.
And the car apps.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And the internet is an example of outdoor advertising, or what we call out of home. No, I'm sorry. It's not an example of outdoor advertising, but it's a media type. Right? Internet advertising, whether it's banner ads or email, it's one of the options. We have to choose. We have to decide which media type is going to be the most effective. Now, integrated marketing communications, also known as IMC, says that we're going to use a variety of media types because generally no one media type is enough to reach the entire target audience. Two fundamental concepts in advertising is reach and frequency. Reach is how many people are exposed to our advertisement. Frequency is how many times. The greater the reach, the more expensive. The greater the frequency, the more expensive. So the more people that we reach, the more we're going to have to pay for the ad. So the Super Bowl, for example, a 30-second spot on the Super Bowl was $3 million. Why was it so expensive? Because the reach, even though the frequency was one, right, one time, which is generally not enough. Generally, we need a frequency between 5 and 8 times in order to process the messaging. But it was $3 million, which is actually quite expensive. The average for a TV spot, and it is hard to generalize, but between $150,000 and $250,000. There's a lot of factors that are going to influence that. Depends on the day part. So is it prime time? Is it early morning? That's going to have an impact. But somewhere between $150,000 and $250,000 is average. Now I'm telling you, Super Bowl, $3 million. Because the reach was very high. Roughly 200 million people. There's actually about 197 million. But you could reach 200 million people. In order to determine which publication is going to be the best publication, for example, to advertise in, we need to compare them. We need to evaluate Better Homes and Garden versus Ladies' Home Journal versus Sports Illustrated versus Vogue. What we do is we view the media kit for those publications. The media kit is posted on the company's website, and it includes the demographics of the readership, which means it tells what percentage of the readers are male versus female, what percentage are in certain income groups, what percentage are in the different age groups. What we need to do is match those demographics to the demographics of our target audience. So if our target audience is men, then advertising in Vogue is not a good idea. We're wasting money. So there's got to be a match between the demographics of the target audience and the demographics of the readership or the viewership. In print, what we do is we calculate the cost per thousand. So we not only look at the cost of the ad, so a full-page ad in Ladies' Home Journal is about $250,000. In Better Homes and Garden, it's $400,000. But that doesn't tell enough of the story for us to say which is a better deal. So $250,000, we think, that's a blinding glimpse at the obvious. That one is cheaper. But we need to look at what is the level of circulation. So now when I tell you that the circulation for Better Homes and Garden is 7.5 million, and the circulation for Ladies' Home Journal is 3,800,000, now that changes things. Well, sure, it's $400,000 for a full-page ad, but you reach 7.5 million people. But we can't just eyeball it, because there's hundreds of different publications that we need to evaluate. So we calculate the cost per thousand, which is called the CPM. To calculate the CPM, what we do is take the ad cost, multiply it by 1,000, and divide by the circulation. So it's the cost of the ad times 1,000 divided by the level of circulation. In the US, in my experience, the range of the cost per thousand is between $35 to $75. So if you calculate the cost per thousand and you get something like 14,288, that can't even possibly be right. So you need to recalculate. In a print ad, there's several key elements that are important when we're going to design a print ad. There's a headline, which is what's intended to get people's attention. So there's got to be either a communication of the benefit of the product, like lose 50 pounds in 2 weeks. That's going to get some people's attention. Or grow a full head of hair in a month. Some people might find that very appealing. But another way to get attention is through the illustration, which could be either a photo or it could be a drawing. We need to create stopping power. Because think, for example, in magazines, you just keep turning the pages and it's just one ad after another ad, and some publications are even have more ads than others. Like the editorial content in some is virtually non-existent, like in Vogue. Is there like any editorial content in there? It's just one ad after the next, and it's 150 pages of ads. So how do we break through that clutter? In advertising, certainly one of our biggest challenges is to break through the clutter. How do we get attention? How do we get people to focus on our ad? Me, 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 me. That's what we want the focus to be on. Just you're going through all these ads, or you're seeing all these commercials. How do we get their attention? So the headline can be very compelling. The visual can also stop people in their tracks. Once we get people's attention, then we want to communicate with them and elaborate on the headline. Because growing a full head of hair in a month is certainly interesting, but you got to explain how that's going to happen. And take it from me, Rogaine, it doesn't work. So explain, okay? Explain, because I need to understand how exactly this is going to happen. Is it witchcraft or what? You know, if I have to rub like lemon juice on my head or something, you know, fill me in. That's what we call the body copy. Nobody wants to read the body copy, right? It's like a short paragraph, maybe it's 3 to 4 sentences. Nobody wants to read that. So that's why we have to have a compelling headline. Because if it says you're going to grow a full head of hair in a month, you're going to want to read, right? You're going to be engaged and want to find out the details. Most importantly, really the most important element is to include the company's logo and symbol. Because everything else is meaningless if people don't know that that bundle of features and benefits is associated with that brand. That imagery and positioning that you communicated is associated with that brand. Doesn't mean anything if you develop an ad that's very provocative or communicates fun, whatever it is that the image that you create there doesn't mean anything, if it's not associated with a particular brand. And you'll see they make this mistake in Vogue, for example. They're so concerned about intruding upon the integrity of the design of the ad that they hide the logo or symbol somewhere in the corner so it sort of blends in to the design. Well, that's a huge waste of money because the purpose of the ad is not to entertain people. It's not to give people a cheap thrill, right? You have some model there that has a tramp stamp and etc., right? It's not about that. It could be, but if you go through all of that effort and create this imagery, it's got to be associated with your brand. Otherwise, you've wasted your money.